Hello and welcome to our summer series. I'm hearing a little bit of echo. Welcome to our second episode of IgniteEDprep Summer Series, Meet the Industry Expert. I am your host, Tanya Bennett, founder and CEO of IgniteEDprep, the online affordable academy for hourly associate and management development for franchises. So my co-host today is a trusted partner of IgniteEDprep and our operations consultant, Marie Genevieve Pollock. She is the founder and CEO of Prime Alchemy. You'll be seeing her in just a second. A little housekeeping before we get started. We will be saving some time towards the end of our show for Q&A. So if you're joining us on Clubhouse, please make sure you're either on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and we'll be able to see your questions. If you ask a question, please make sure you type the question in your name because there's some kind of algorithm thing. So without further ado, let's introduce our guest and a very dear friend of mine, Damon Lawrence. So Damon is the co-founder and CEO of Homage Hospitality. And Damon's experience in hospitality stretches among some of the best brands in the world. He is a graduate of Howard University and first began his hospitality journey in the nation's capital as a front desk agent for Thompson Hotel Group's Donovan House Hotel in Midtown, DC. From there, he moved within management ranks at companies such as Ritz-Carlton, Intercontinental Hotel Group, and Dusted Tanai International?
Yep, Dusted Tanai, yeah.
Okay, for a career that spans over a decade. And after witnessing a lack of African-American representation in brand ownership and leadership, Damon created the Homage Hospitality brand and oversees all of the operations and the creative direction. So he currently splits his time between Oakland and New Orleans. And yes, he's a very lucky guy. So let's welcome Damon and my friend Marie. Hello, my friends, and thank you so much for joining us.
It is a pleasure. I'm excited. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited to talk about what we've been doing at Homage and everything we have going on.
Absolutely. So, and welcome, Marie.
Hello. I'm so excited about this one. I just cannot wait to just bombard Damon with questions. I'm super excited.
Absolutely. So before we get started, Damon, why don't you just go ahead and give our listeners a little bit of a background about you? I know I gave you a little bit of introduction, but would love to hear more about your background and how you started this amazing brand and company.
And your why.
Definitely.
Okay, your why, definitely.
Yeah.
Right. Well, first of all, I'm from Pasadena, California. Just had to let that be known for everybody out there, Pasadena. And I started working in hospitality really just as a job to get through college. Had no aspiration of making it a career choice. I was pre-law in undergrad and had every intention on going to law school either in DC or in LA. And then when I started working at the front desk, I remember the specific moment. I was actually working the front desk during Obama's first inauguration. And we had at Thompson at the time, it was like a who's who of like celebrity royalty in the lobby. And I remember saying to myself, like, man, this is so cool. We have, Kid Rock is over here, Sheryl Crow's over here, Sway and Heidi Klum and Seal are over there. And I remember thinking, like, man, this is awesome that we're celebrating this moment that the first Black president is being elected. But man, none of this is actually owned by a person of color, right? Nothing in this space. And it's like, man, then I started doing research. I'm sitting there at the front desk, like trying to find out, like, do we own any of these? And I couldn't find anything, especially not in the boutique space or independent. And then from there, I just kind of found like a niche or like something was just telling me, like, if you can't see it, then why don't you just do it, right? And so from that point, I changed my career goals. Instead of going to law school, I thought, I'm gonna stick with hospitality and see where it takes me. And I took jobs from that point on just to learn different aspects of the industry that I didn't know. So whether it was, housekeeping or sales and marketing or food and beverage. I just bounced around from property to property, making sure that I was gaining some knowledge along the way to eventually launch my own hotel company and brand. And then the tipping point.
We have to say this.
Right.
How old were you when you did this?
26.
My God. Okay, keep going.
26 when I was working. Okay, when I was working at that hotel, I wasn't even 21 yet. Right.
Wow.
So I remember that vividly because all my coworkers used to go to happy hour and I couldn't go. So I was like the youngest person working there at the front desk. But when I finally realized, like, okay, this is what I really want to do, I was about 26. And then the tipping point was I was 28, 29 in the Walter Scott case. I don't know if you remember the Walter Scott shooting that happened. It was a gentleman who had a broken tail light. He gets out of his car and the police officer just tells him to run. And the police officer just shoots him in the back, and it was all caught on video. And I was telling myself, you know, all the other police incidents that you would see, there were people my age. They were young Black men. This is the first time that it was actually an older Black male, and I saw it. And that could have been my dad, that could have been my uncle, my grandfather, et cetera. And it moved me a little bit different when you can see other people that you know and love in that position. Mm-hmm. And for me, my protest was just to create, right? Mm-hmm. To create something. And I said, look, I'm young, I don't have any kids, I don't have any responsibilities. If I'm gonna do it now, learn. And I took probably the next, I don't know, 4 years just learning as much as I possibly could about transitioning from working in a hotel to actually developing and operating a hotel. Was a drastically different work style and set of rules and, you know, language and lingo that you have to learn that I knew nothing about prior. And so then we finally opened up a property in New Orleans in 2018. Got a ton of press, and you know, it did really well. Partnership with Airbnb. We had a nationally televised commercial that was running around. We had billboards in like 5 different markets, which was crazy. People landing in Atlanta and Chicago, seeing our billboards everywhere. And then the pandemic hit, and I think we're going to talk about.
We're going to get to the pandemic. But I've got a few things that I just have to highlight on because it's one of the things that have always fascinated me about you. And often people hear me say, I think millennials are going to change the world. And my God, if you aren't the representation of that, I don't know what is. But, you know, I have to ask a couple of questions. The first question I have to ask is, we know that to be taken seriously, a 20-something-year-old, you know, wanting to start their own hotel, those odds are against you. Now you add being a Black man on top of that age, wanting to start a hotel or create something. What avenues did you take to make that dream a reality, and how did you get taken seriously?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I did was I just tried to soak up as much knowledge as possible. I met with as many people as I could. I was taking meetings, emailing people, doing my research. Google is your friend. So anybody that I saw that was in the space that was doing what I wanted to do, I would just reach out to them. Right. And whether they responded back or not that was up to them. But me doing my part was just reaching out to people that I saw in the industry doing what I wanted to do. And so as soon as, you know, I started to meet people, learn more through the process. And even through that is how I even met some of my future investors. Right. Just taking meetings and telling them, this is what I want to do. This is the city that I want to do it in. How do I get from here to there to making it happen?
New Orleans is not an easy city. I mean, my God, all the odds were against you. I mean, because let's face it, New Orleans is the hospitality mecca of the world.
Yeah.
So it is mind-boggling to me to hear your story. And I know firsthand, because I know you personally, the perseverance that had to be, and you aren't afraid of no. You aren't afraid of people telling no. You just look at no as next. And you're one of the first people that I think I've ever met that truly embodies that. Like, okay, great. Who's next? Like you don't let it define you. You keep going. So Marie, did you have any questions about the story before we move on to pandemic?
I do. And so one of the things that I'd love to highlight, and you started to, was really about the fact that you didn't take no for an answer. But can you tell our listeners how that came to be for you, how you recognize that no is really about, okay, next? Because there are a lot of kids and adults listening that are, they're petrified of the word no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I think about a lot of things. I think about playing football and, even collegiately, and realizing you mess up on a play, you have to get right back, put your hand right back in the dirt and go right back to the next play right after that. And nothing stops, right? And the next opportunity is just an opportunity for you to get better. And I think for me, it's like when you are fortunate and blessed to know what you want to do at a very early age. Like for me, I knew this is what I wanted to do, right? At 20. There's a lot of people that are not, fortunate enough to be in that position that early. Yeah. And then I know what the end result and the goal looks like. It's owning a hotel. It's owning it with my brand attached to it. And so to me, there's nothing else that I could do. And I think when you're in a position where I couldn't be employed anywhere else. I couldn't work for any other hotel group because I always would have this goal and this vision for myself. And that allows you to continue and persevere through anything because there's an end result that you're shooting for.
I just want to highlight on that really quickly because you mentioned something that, and I'm noticing in Clubhouse, we have several women listening. And one thing that I have learned is that women tend to internalize no a little bit more. And I think a lot of the reason why is what you just mentioned. Men, a lot of times, have been brought up to be in sports, that they were taught at an early age that coaching or didn't revolve, it wasn't a personal attack on you're not a good person. But when you look at a lot of women, especially in my age group, maybe that's changed for younger women, but in my age group, the sports that women were given mostly were cheerleading and gymnastics. You didn't really see a coach ever looking at a football field and saying, man, he's great, but I just don't know if he's got the look. I don't know if I like that smile. And when you look at that, that is why women internalize no a little bit more, is because it was personal. Right. And so I think that this was an aha moment for me, recognizing, like hearing your story, I think just reiterates that story for women. And I think even there's some similarity. I can't speak to the Black experience, but I do know I have a Black son. And I know sometimes when I feel some of those similarities in our stories, the feeling that we're other and how to figure that and how to navigate through those waters.
Right. And, I think I will give some credit to even going to Howard University and how that shaped my mentality and how I think about things and how I think about the world, right? Even to create the Homage brand, for it to pay homage to Black culture, what that means, what that represents. A lot of that was really birthed at Howard, and the way I started to feel about myself and the self-confidence that I have that I can do anything, because I've seen it happen. I've seen all these people come through this school and go on to do amazing things. And that can give you, the added push that it's possible, that things are possible. Yeah.
And I think that's sort of a key, because it's about if you, and this is a point that does not matter your gender or your race. If you can see yourself be someone that is successful, if you can see yourself in someone that's able to do the thing that you want to do or something similar to what you want to do, then you can see the possibility. And so that's what makes this even more of an amazing story, is that here's a situation where you don't see yourself in the thing that you want to do. And that pushes you further to say, I not only want to see myself, I want to be that person so that others can see themselves.
Right.
This is why I'm so excited about this.
And to that point, that's a beautiful point. The one thing that I will say, though, what I did realize, what really pushed me forward, is I knew when I was doing that Googling and I couldn't find anybody, that's actually incorrect. I could find people.
Mhm.
It was just that those stories were from the Green Book era, from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, at a time where we had to create spaces just for us,
Right.
these safe havens. But those were the stories that kept coming up. I couldn't find anything current. I couldn't find anything recent. And I started to see, that was also around the time where the boutique experience and the boutique hospitality really started to take form. And I realized we weren't involved, right? And I know we travel, but we're just not involved in this aspect of the industry. And so the fact that I knew it was possible, because we had done it before, right? Decades before, but right now, we're just not active participants in it. That also was a driving factor as well.
So let's transition now. So we've talked a little bit about your start, your beginnings, what motivated, what inspired you. Now let's talk about the inevitable, the pandemic. And I say this every time I speak about the pandemic. It's the first time in my life that we've seen something happen globally, and no leaders had a little black book that said what to do when a global pandemic hits the world, right? It felt like the world shut down overnight. Probably not the case, but it kind of felt that way. Right. So talk to us a little bit about that moment when you realized, this is real and this is getting ready to be a game changer, and kind of what you did to navigate forward through, and then we'll talk about after pandemic later.
Yeah, so I'll go through the whole process. We were knee deep in a project in Oakland, right? Trying to raise the capital for it, fell out of contract. And then at the time that we fell out of contract, I also just sold the New Orleans property. And I did it strategically at the time to set up everything for this larger Oakland property. So we had a small property, sell that, prepare for the work that's about to go into this larger Oakland property. Then the world shuts down, right? And at the time, quite frankly, I'm a hotelless hotelier, right? So I got caught in the middle.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Awesome. And so I started thinking just about what the next couple of years could look like. What were my projections, and where did I think things were going to go? And that really kind of happened like right around mid-March when everything shut down and we went into that full lockdown mode in California. And I started even second guessing even if this was really how I needed to go, because it was so daunting in that moment, right? So then over the course of the next couple of months, I started playing with, some pivots and what I thought, hospitality could be going, adding technology into the mix. And then the more I did it, the more I realized study your history. Right. And I think I even put that on LinkedIn, is like, understand that, this is the first time it's happened for us. This is not the first time it's happened. Right. Huh. What followed up the Spanish flu, the roaring 20s. Right. And everybody was social and everybody wanted to be high touch. And then so many companies came out of that. Right. Like some of the largest Fortune 500 companies were birthed after that point. And so in understanding and knowing that and realizing just how fickle we are as people and how quickly we are to forget, I realized no, the course that I was on was the course I need to stay on, right? And technology is not going to be a huge driving factor. People are actually going to be more inclined to stay at hotels, right? Less inclined probably to stay in short-term rentals. I had actually predicted it all. I blogged about it, and just about every prediction that I had just about came true. The only one that didn't is I thought very early on that we were going to be in this situation for 2 years at least.
I think we're close.
We're getting close. The Delta variant might choose me a winner on that one. So we'll see what happens.
Not, but yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was like this, this ebb and flow, this yo-yoing back and forth for at least 2 years. And then after that, it would be a huge push for travel domestically and internationally. And I wanted to be able to position the company for that on the back end. And I have to admit, the events of the summer, right? So the George Floyd's death, his murder, and then the protests that followed it really gave me even added spotlight, added push. I met more people during that period of time that were extremely helpful than probably the whole year prior. And so in some ways, I have the pandemic to thank for that, because I don't believe that any of that would have happened in the way that it did if it weren't for us all being locked down, stuck at home, forced to watch the news, forced to internalize it, forced to take it in, and then, forced to do something about it. And so in the last year, I think there's been these yo-yos of ups and downs for Homage, but overall, I'm happy with where we are today and what we're working on and some of the projects. It reshaped my focus as far as the markets that we want to enter into. I'm spending a lot of time in the Southeast, looking at markets like Birmingham, Montgomery, Memphis, New Orleans, where I'm at now, Albany, Georgia, and really following, kind of the civil rights era and that movement and what was happening in those cities, and figuring out a way to creatively tell stories that we haven't heard before through the development of the hotels that we're working on. So that was my pandemic journey, and we're still in it.
Yeah.
Still trying to navigate what the next couple of years look like. But I think we're going to have a huge rebound, and hotels are going to be going to benefit greatly from it.
Well, and what I love about hearing what you just said, and Damon, I still remember the one time we were sitting in the middle of the Monteleone. Remember when we first met, we were sitting down on a couch and we were talking about, and this was before the pandemic ever started.
Right.
But I heard your story then and how crystal clear you were on your vision and what you wanted to accomplish. And what I love about what I just heard is you trust yourself and know when to pivot. Right. And I do think, don't get me wrong, I think you're still on to something. I think that there will be some pivot in the hospitality industry towards technology, but I think that's going to be how the way we execute. Right. There's no doubt. We've got minimum wage increases coming. We've got a major employee shortage. We have generational gaps on the horizon right now. I mean, we got 70 million baby boomers exiting the workforce early. And we've got, I think I read by 2025, 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials. And the problem that we have with that is not many millennials are like you. A lot of millennials have not been able to get jobs. Right. So they haven't gotten that experience. So there's a gap in learning skills, right? So this is where we talk about technology is going to come in, right? It is, we're going to have to use technology on the back end to execute the dream of and the vision of what you are, what you see. Right. But I love that you have this core belief that is basically post-pandemic proof, that you are like, I don't waver from that vision, from that purpose. I know this is my purpose, to tell a story, to make an impact, and that you see it through. And I think that that's the reason why you keep finding opportunities. And let's face it, again, the oxymoron, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, or the cliche, what is the word I'm looking for when it conundrum of, you're focusing primarily in the Southeast and you're a Black man focusing on building a dynasty in the Southeast, and you're doing it. Sure. You're paving roads, you're paving through. And I know firsthand as well from watching your journey and watching others, I know it's not easy, but yet you're so tied to that purpose. And again, no is just next. Nothing stops you.
Yeah, I want to touch on a few things that you just mentioned. I agree with you when it comes to technology. Technology is really going to just enhance the experience. It's not going to replace people. I don't think that that's the direction that I don't think we're going to go in. I think when you think about hospitality, the part of it is being hospitable, and technology just can't do that, right?
People, it's about people.
And I think about even what we've been dealing with technology, even as we're doing this right now. I love the fact that we're virtual. I love the fact that we can stream. It would be much better to sit down and be at a hotel somewhere and be able to do this live, right? And what I joked about this, there's so much business travel that I did pre-pandemic that could have been done just like this. I didn't need to fly to New York for the day and then fly back for that meeting. I could have done this. But there are certain times where this is so important. And being able to look directly in someone's eyes when you're asking them for capital is so important. And so I think we're going to go back to the basics, right? And we're going back to real hospitality, and we're going back to people actually creating a work environment that people want to be at, right? And people want to be a part of and enjoy personally. And then the last part is
reckoning.
Right. And then, you know, hospitality specifically, obviously, and we're going to talk about this, we have a diversity issue, but we also have a PR issue, right? Because there's a whole lot of young Black kids that and their parents are telling them, I'm not sending you to college to go work at no hotel. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm paying this money for. That's not what you're going to school for, because you associate working in hospitality sometimes with servitude, right? And with a long history that we have just as Black Americans in this country, and you're trying to get away from it. And I don't think that we have done a good job in the industry of promoting just how fun this industry can be, the lifestyle component of it, the sexiness of it, you know? And so we definitely have a PR issue, and I'm trying to help to fix that first, to get more people excited about what the industry can provide.
Scott Taylor touched on that last week. Do you remember, Marie?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It's so interesting that you called it a PR issue, because I think that's exactly what it is. Because we are so focused on, we think, and I think this is also about a problem of perception in terms of, we make assumptions that, oh, these jobs are lower jobs than another job. And, you know, the thing that I used to love, my mother used to say all the time, there are no bad jobs. You know, it's how you carry yourself in the work that you do, and that there's a career path. We all have to start somewhere. And that's what I kind of love what you're talking about, is you're talking about building a career path for people, being able to help them understand that path. So I love that. And we have a comment someone said, that's a very good point. It's always a PR issue.
Always. And I think too, Scott Taylor touched on last week as well. One thing that he said was that, and you said, Marie, it was an assumption. It's not an assumption. People are told this. Think about, in even the political arena, how many times people reference the hospitality industry as dead-end jobs, flipping burgers at McDonald's. They reference it. Even Scott was saying that people still, to him, he's a COO of a major restaurant chain. Damon, you're a CEO and a co-founder of a hotel. He still has people approach him asking him when he's going to go get a real job.
Well, but that builds the assumption. You know, it starts off with this assumption. You know, it starts off with this idea of that. And it's not just, I will say, it's not just in the hospitality industry. I think there's a lot of industries that have amazing jobs and amazing skills that people will learn, life skills as well as business skills, that's diminished because we make assumptions. You know, manufacturing is one, you know, hospitality, restaurants, anything in the service industry. There's all these assumptions made of the type of person. And I'll bring up the immigrant, you know, I'm a child of immigrants. So for me, this is an added layer to this, is that there's this assumption that, oh, it's just, you know, non-English speaking people, there's no movement, and there's so much more. And so that's what I love that you're doing, is you're bringing that to light.
Everything you just said, it made me think about a number of things. It made me think about how many other companies outside of hospitality have used Ritz-Carlton's style of hospitality in their own company, right? It makes me think of, you know, how hardworking some people are in the industry. I worked in housekeeping for, I think, like a month, training, right? I was at a hotel called Shutters on the Beach. Is it? Yeah, Shutters on the Beach in Santa Monica. I think that's the name of it. I'm forgetting. But I was training in housekeeping for a month, and I tell you, I've never been so sore. My back was hurting. You know, every muscle on my body was sore, right? And I was like, man, this is crazy. And then the last part that I wanted to mention is, and you talked about it, are the transferable skills. In every aspect of the hospitality journey, these skills are transferable. I was on a call recently and I said, if you can do a hotel deal, if you can actually raise capital and finance a hotel, you can finance anything else in commercial real estate.
Yep.
It is by far the most complex, most challenging deal to finance in commercial real estate, period. Right? Because instead of you looking at monthly, I'm looking at daily, almost hourly, how things can change and how it can be impacted. And I have to stress test it. And there's just so many different variables that impact my day-to-day operations. But you see that across the board. There are, how many actors and actresses are working in the service industry?
Right? Well, I have to tell you, the transferable part really speaks to me because I started my career right after I finished grad school. I started my career in the restaurant industry. And yes, Marie, I remember I opened up a new division for Steak and Shake. Mm-hmm. It was a high volume restaurant in Dallas, Texas. And here I am slopping milkshakes dripping off of my nose. I mean, it was the hardest job I've ever done. I'm in the dish pit. I'm doing it all. But then I ended up switching later on in my career to hotel sales, right? Obviously a little more glamorous. Worked for Ritz-Carlton, worked for Marriott, Hilton. But I will tell you, the sense of urgency that was instilled in me from working in the hospitality industry, I know hands down was the backbone to my success in sales because I was always the first person to respond. I was always proactive in the needs of my clients, which is ingrained in you in the restaurant industry or in the hotel industry. You have to be proactive to what people need. If you wait for them to ask, you're already sinking, right? And that is a talent and a skill set that I don't think a lot of other industries have. And I think I struggled switching to other industries because they're too slow to react. And I think that sense of urgency is something that is detrimental to the growth of any company.
Yeah, and you talked about that last week. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was all I was going to say is operationally, that's what's taught.
Yeah. On
the corporate level, it's still very slow to react. Very slow to react on the corporate level. And that is what plagues our industry the most is the same mentality, the same charisma that you have on the frontline level, you're not seeing as you go further up. Mm-hmm. You're also not seeing the diversity as you go further up, you know? So interesting to see what's going to happen next, but we definitely just need more diversity, more women, more people of color across the board, higher up from the C-suite and above to truly affect change, because that's where the true pivots are going to come from, are having the different minds in the room at the same time that understand it from different angles.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because that really does speak to what we call the diversity of experience. And I think a lot of times what happens is that this conversation gets stuck in a black and white and not really looking at all what we call all the shades of gray in reality, right? And so you can have a group of people that have the same educational background and they may look differently, but if they've grown up in the same location and they've grown up in the same environment, they have no diversity of experience. And so what we're talking about when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and belonging is really about how do we open this up to every aspect of diversity? You know, the fact that you're originally from California and you bring not only who you are, where you're from, but also your experiences at Howard, which are a completely different experience from someone who, you know, went to the University of North Carolina. Right? There's a whole different aspect. And so we sort of limit people when we talk about diversity, and we don't recognize there's this big aspect of diversity that we need to bring to the table. So I love that you're doing that you're opening those doors. We have a lot of comments.
I know.
So when we're ready, I'll read the comments.
You said diversity of thought? Is that what you said?
Diversity of thought, diversity of education, diversity of experience, of not, you know, there's just so many aspects, you know, where you're from, who you know, that's another thing. I mean, I love your story about how I looked for people. I sought out people, different location and aspects. I Google people. A lot of people don't even think of that because they're just so focused in their small world and they are not willing to open up. And you did that. And I think that's just brilliant.
Right. And then,
so we've got about 10 minutes left, and I don't want to rush us, but I do want to get into, because Damon, I think if anything, you have proven you're an innovator, right? Which we knew that, which is why I kind of wanted to have you on our show. But I'd like to know what's next for you. So what are some upcoming projects? How do you look forward from the pandemic as we come out of it and hopefully don't hit your 2-year mark? I'm hoping we don't, no offense. But how do we move forward? How do you, what's next? How do you navigate out of this, through it, forward to still be profitable and grow even more?
Yeah, right now I'm just looking for deals, right? So I'm here in New Orleans, looking at a project right now that we're super excited about. And then I don't even know where's next, right? It might be Birmingham, it might be Montgomery, I'm not sure, but just making sure that we seize the moment. There's a window, there's opportunity, there's money flow, right? And there's people talking about, giving back to Black-owned businesses. And I wonder,
told me, I remember you said where a lot of people see doom, I see innovation. I remember clearly you telling me that, and I think you definitely embody that.
But there's a small window of opportunity. It is not gonna last for too long, right? And it's interesting. I was joking about this, but it's really not that funny. But if you see how fast the Derek Chauvin trial came and went, and he got sentenced, it happened quick.
Right?
It happened quick. And you think about just what happened in the last year and all the push that was, geared towards giving money to Black-owned businesses. And you wonder if there's any correlation to that, just kind of getting it out the way so that we don't have to, it's not lingering. The lingering effects of it aren't still here. And so I feel like there's a moment in time right now. And if we don't seize this moment, it'll never come back, right? And so for us, it's finding deals, finding the right deal, making sure that we can, get the capital and get it financed. And I'm super excited about it. I mean, we're looking at a lot of different projects in a lot of great cities. And this is the time. And then so we can go through the development process for the next year and a half, and then open when I think there's going to be a huge boom in travel internationally.
Well, and Damon, you mentioned the push right now for diversity. And, I'm big on, I've studied a lot of these generational gaps, and Generation Z coming up, 48% of them are non-Caucasian.
Right.
And it's the first time in history we've ever had a generation that was this diverse. And so I think that the demographics that we're just naturally facing are only going to help push our tide. It's going to only help push towards this more diversity and inclusion that we're seeing.
Right.
And I think also, the thing I love about millennials are so transparent, and millennials are tired, pardon my French, of the bullshit of people saying, oh, we're diverse and we're we support diversity and inclusion. And here's a picture of one Asian man, one Black man, one woman, and 5 old white men. And we're diverse, right? Millennials are calling it on it. They're like, bull, that's not true. And so one thing, my favorite trait about millennials is they demand transparency. And I think that is where we're going to see the world change and move forward, because it's easy to do things when you hide and when it's hidden, right? And when that has been the culture, don't tell people how much you make. Well, of course they didn't want to tell people how much they make because
they're making way more than everybody else.
Skill set or less skill set, right?
Right.
Qualifications. Right. So I cannot thank you enough. We've got about 5 minutes left. Any last minute thoughts?
I have a bunch of people that I just have to shout out that is related to this conversation. So I'm a member of HDAC, which is the Hospitality Diversity Action Committee. We're doing amazing work just to get more diversity into our industry, to call people out, to make sure that when we grade hotels by how diverse they are, we're not looking at the lower level positions, but we're looking at the management positions and seeing just how much diversity exists once you get to the C-suite level. So I had to mention them. I'm also working with the Marriott Foundation and Howard University. So Howard will be getting a brand new hospitality school, and I'm helping them, develop that to create hospitality professionals for the future. Having a hotel school at Howard is going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing for our industry. I hope that we're able to get the best talent from all over the world that comes to the Arnie Sorensen School for Hospitality at Howard University. So I'm super excited about that.
It's really exciting. Wow.
Oh man, super exciting, super exciting. I think that is going to be monumental in doing all the things that we're talking about right now, as far as raising awareness, getting people excited about our industry, and doing it at what I believe is the best university in the world. So excited about that. And then there was, what else did I want to shout out? Oh, and then I'm also on the board of the Indie Lodging Congress. We have a number of events happening all this year. We're back to live events. We'll see. We're kind of doing this hybrid of live and virtual, trying to figure that out. But excited for the industry to start coming back together again this year.
Very cool. So again, you've introduced me to someone that I'm in love with again.
I know.
I feel like every week I fall in and out of love with different people. And now I'm in love with it. Just brilliant. Just brilliant. I'm totally in love. My poor husband, he's going to be like, again?
Well, and Damon, I can't thank you enough. Again, you were so gracious to join us. I know you're so busy, and I know you're traveling the country. I mean, every time I try to reach out to you, you're in a different city, which is an awesome problem to have. But, I'm really excited to see how you are going to lead the charge. You already are leading the charge, right? But I think that proving to companies, with just generational, with like I said, the diversity coming up as far as different generations, we're going to show companies that it is more profitable and in their best interest to have a more diverse staff, to try to serve more diverse people, and truly be inclusive in their communities instead of just trying to put a poster on the wall and saying they're doing it. So I can't thank you enough for joining us. Like I said, I adore you, and we will probably be calling you back because we're going to be doing at the end of the series. We're going to be doing a panel, and we're going to invite a few of our guest speakers back. And I can already tell you're going to be on that panel. So I'll let you know more details, but thank you for joining us.
Thank you both.
Thank you for all of our Clubhouse people. We had quite a few in Clubhouse join us, as well as it looks like on the live stream. Marie and I are getting ready to do a post interview about you, Damon.
I'm done.
Yeah, you're done.
I'm done. All right.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll touch base soon, my friend.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Marie.
Oh, well, let's jump off of here and then do the post in a different one so that people have the opportunity. So just follow us. We'll be back shortly.
Yep. Follow us. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. Yes. Okay. Hold tight.
Okay.